everyone. I'm Garrett Tesla, founder of the Squad Room, where we help you transform your leadership, create more resilience, and generate more balance in your life. I started the Squad Room because I was searching for those answers for myself. And as I dug deep into personal development and dealing with the stress of my job as a cop, I quickly realized that I was not alone. So the Squad Room is here to help you become the person you want to be. And we give you access to some of the best experts in the world to help you do that. If you're new to the show, thanks for being here. And don't forget to follow or subscribe to the show so that you don't miss any of this valuable information that literally could change your life. We all need coaches and mentors in our lives, and we have literally hundreds of hours of free content on this show and at thesquadroom.net on growing your leadership, raising your emotional awareness, mastering stress, arresting anger, and creating more balance in your life. Now, let's get to today's episode so you can implement some of these lessons into your life. And trust me, many of these lessons are hard-won. There are blood, sweat, and probably a few tears behind what we share on this show. But the whole point is to help you navigate these tough careers during these incredibly challenging times. So listen closely and maybe even take a couple notes so that you can execute on some of the lessons you learned today. I also challenge you to share this message with friends who are committed to personal development like you. It's important that all of us spread some positivity in these difficult times. It's the responsibility of each of us to lead where we can. And you can do that right now by taking these lessons and sharing them with others. Also, make sure to DM me or tag me on Instagram at The Squad Room so I can cheer you on or answer questions. And I'd love it if you wanted to reach out by email to me. It's garrett@thesquadroom.net. Thanks for listening. Now let's begin. Hey everybody, in this episode we're going to talk about ways to improve your work-life balance. Work-life balance, that's kind of become the new catchphrase. Last year it was mindfulness, and the year before that it was meditation, and the year before that it was wellness. I don't know. But work-life balance definitely seems to be finally on our list of discussion topics. And it's important because we need it. But we also don't really know what it is. And so on today's episode, I'm hoping to share with you some ideas that I have found to be helpful in how to improve my work-life balance. Now, what is work-life balance? Let's start with that. Obviously, we have our work life, our work, our career, our job, and we have our home life and all the things that are outside work. And so for the purposes of this discussion today, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to kind of divide it into two categories. Your time at work, which is 40 hours a week, give or take. Of course, more if you're on mandatory staffing or mandatory overtime. And then basically the life part of that is everything else. It's how you spend your free time, your time off, all your time off duty, how you spend it with friends, maybe how you spend it sleeping in the gym, how we choose to use all the other hours in our week that aren't at work. And this is obviously something very important for us. And I think any cop who's come to the realization that they bury themselves for their agency comes to the realization at some point they realize that that has to change and that they can't keep living in that rhythm that they were. I have been accused several times, if not more than that, in my department of having a life that is too skewed towards my home life and towards those things. But for me, my challenge, one of my biggest challenges is that, I have a wife that works full time. I have two growing kids that have demands on their time, or rather their interests demand time of mine. And that is not to be negated or dismissed. And so often I think that we think that our assumption is that we bury ourselves for our agencies at the detriment to our families. And there are times where that is certainly appropriate, where you might have a big event, you might have a riot or a mass social justice movement or a major event or something like that that requires you to participate in times that are not normally your work hours. But, the flip side of that, and I think this is something that the newer generation completely understands and that the older generation needs to grasp, older generation being, me included, and my age group, my peers, is that in order to achieve success at the job, you need to be able to balance that with time off. You can't just bury yourself at work and expect to be successful. So it really comes down to your work-life balance, really comes down to your priorities, what your goals are, your goals both in your career, but also for your family. What are your family goals? What are the things you want to do to achieve as a family? Do you want to travel? Do you want to be able to put your kids through private school? Do you want to homeschool? Do you want to have certain hobbies in your life that are very important to you, but maybe time consuming? And so those become part of the conversation too, your goals. But then your obligations are also part of the conversation. They have to be, right? And again, obligations in terms of your career. What are your obligations to your agency? What did you sign up for and what did you agree to? Why did you sign on that dotted line? But then what are our obligations to our family too? Because there's certainly those there too. I took an oath to my agency, but I also took an oath to my wife. And, by default, my kids. And so how do we balance those things? How do we rectify or resolve what our agencies want from us and what our families want from us? And I guarantee that they're often in conflict. Your agency is going to really demand things of you that are, frankly, inappropriate. Really. I mean, if the private sector tried to get away with what agencies try to demand of us sometimes, I think there'd be lawsuits galore. But in public safety, because I'll include fire and EMS in this, they get away with it because they appeal to our sense of duty. Because there's no group on earth more attuned and more desiring of achievement or fulfillment in their sense of duty than first responders and military. Accountants, and I don't mean to bag on accountants, I seem to bag on them quite often, but accountants don't have a sense of duty, a purpose that is so instilled in their gut that they have to serve sleepless nights and rotating shifts and missing birthday parties and missing Little League or soccer or missing whatever it is because they understand a better work-life balance than we do. But because we get appealed to for our sense of duty, which is very strong with us, and that's a good thing, but we get appealed, our sense of duty gets appealed to, and we often then put ourselves in the back seat. And I think that's, a recipe for disaster, really. So here are a few things that I think you need to consider when you're looking at how do I achieve a work-life balance that works for me, works for my family, and works for my agency, because they are part of your life and they need to be treated as such. They need to be given the same respect as your family or your children or your church or your hobbies, that sort of stuff. And I don't mean they need to be given more, but that you just need to pay attention to them. You need to honor that commitment that we've made, that oath we swore. And it's very easy to do that. But we don't want to dismiss the obligations or the oaths or the commitments we've made. That's what I mean by that. So to achieve work-life balance, the first step in that is to really define what that means to you. What are your priorities? What are the things that make up a fulfilling life for you? Now, this will change also in parts of your life. There's going to be plenty of people who are listening to this who are single, who aren't in a long-term committed relationship or that don't have children, who are prepared and completely okay with committing the majority of their time to their job. And that is their priority. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. But then there are also people who are in a different stage in life, who have kids, who maybe have kids who are engaged in high-profile sports teams or something else, or they have a marriage that's demanding in terms of their spouse's priorities or their spouse's goals. And so those things change as you go through your career. But you have to really be able to identify what a balanced life means for you and how how work plays into that, how your play plays into that, how your home life plays into that, how your friendships play into that. And you need to be able to kind of, basically give a percentage to each about how important that is in the general mix, in the general recipe of your life. How important is work versus the other things that you engage in? And if it's 80% important, sure, there's nothing wrong with that. But identify that, acknowledge it, and then don't apologize for it necessarily. But conversely, if 80% of your priorities are family-based and 20% work, don't apologize for that either. You will have to work the overtime sometimes, the mandatory shifts, but get comfortable advocating for yourself and prioritizing family. And then the biggest thing is drop the guilt that comes from saying no, from turning down the overtime and from turning down the pleading requests from lieutenants like myself who look at you with puppy dog eyes and asking you to cover a shift. It's not your responsibility to fulfill my obligations there. Your responsibility in that scenario is to your priorities and to the rest of your life. And so the first tip I can give you on achieving a better work-life balance is, first of all, define what it means to you and understand what your priorities are. All right, number 2 on my list is to eliminate distractions. There are so many distractions in our lives. And so many of them are social media based or, inflammatory news based. And right there, those are the 2 best examples I can give of ways you can cut out distractions. But in order to achieve time to do the things you want to do, you have to eliminate the things you don't want to do. And so the fastest way to do that is to eliminate the things that distract you from your goals. That could be social media. That could be a fantasy football league. That could be engaging in like PTSA if that's not really what you want to do, the parent-teacher stuff. Find and eliminate the distractions, and you'll find more room for balance between work and life. And that also includes the collateral duties at work. If you're not really into being on the bomb team, for example, then don't be on the bomb team. The agency's obligation to fulfill that position is not your problem. It's not your priority. So eliminate those distractions and create time as a result. The third thing you can do to achieve a little bit more work-life balance is to get comfortable saying no. This is very tough sometimes. It's tough all the time. I still fall victim to it, even when I'm asking people to say yes that have every right to say no, But set boundaries with your agency. That includes overtime, voluntary overtime, or even mandatory overtime. You can't do much about mandatory overtime, but you can do a lot about voluntary overtime. You can stop signing up for it. It includes specialty assignments or collateral assignments. It includes signing up with your union and being a POA member, or not just a member, but a POA board member. Your union obligations, all those things. All your yeses, think of it this way, all your yeses, all the things you do in addition to your work, the things you do to maybe get onto a specialty assignment that you kind of want or that you think you need in order to promote. All the yeses in your life, those are donated hours that you're giving away your attention and intention to other people. So get comfortable saying no to those kinds of obligations. Closely followed to that, the next recommendation I have is don't apologize for saying no. We often, our knee-jerk reaction is to, if we turn down an assignment or a request for overtime or those sorts of things, our immediate reaction is to sometimes I apologize and create an explanation or give an explanation. But all that does is really create guilt and a sense of obligation to us to make up for it. We engage in, or we end up with this sense of reciprocity that when we say no to something that we owe them to come back and make it up to them. And that's just not true. We have to be comfortable saying no, and then we have to get comfortable not being apologetic for saying no. As long as you're coming to work, you're doing your job, you're doing the job that they described in your job flyer, you're not being dangerous, you're not being a liability, they really don't have an ability to call forth from you extra work without extra benefit unless you see it that way. If it doesn't make sense to you, you have to say no, and then you have to stop apologizing for it. Stop explaining it away. You have to be comfortable saying no because you have a priority that is bigger than the work itself. Number 5 is a real simple one. Prioritize your sleep. I struggle this one all the time. I love good sleep. I have 3 sleep disorders that I struggle with. I wear a goofy machine on my nose, the CPAP, to help me sleep. But yet, even with those things, I still don't prioritize my sleep like I could. And why is that important? Well, if we're trying to create work-life balance, what that means is we also are trying to create extra time. We're trying to develop more time in our day. And the only way you really make more time is not by sleeping less, but by sleeping better so that your waking hours are more productive. I've had plenty of days where I worked off of like the Jocko Willink mindset of get up at 4:30 and work your tail off. But by 2:30, I'm exhausted, I'm wiped out, and I'm ready for a nap. I have found for me, it's much more successful if I get a quality 7 or 8 hours, wake up like a normal human, and I know shift workers, you don't have that choice all the time. But if we wake up in a time frame that is in line with what our body needs, the waking hours that we do have are far more energetic, far more clear, far more engaged than any other hours that we could possibly have. So I have found that prioritizing sleep and getting good sleep is a game changer when it comes to creating time in my life. The next example or the next recommendation I have for creating a better work-life balance is to enjoy the garbage moments. Enjoy the garbage moments. What the heck does that mean? Well, it's a great quote that actually comes from Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian. And he was asked by an interviewer, and I forget who, but about, creating moments with his kids and these big special events and traveling to somewhere like Paris or Alaska and all these things. And he's like, no, I don't need those things. I want the garbage moments. The garbage moments. Those are the things that matter to me. It's not every interaction with your family or your kids that has to be a monumental event. It's the little moments, the things that we tend to throw away in our minds. And that's what he means by garbage moments. The watching them play a video game on the couch, or watching your 2 kids interact and laugh with each other, or watching them struggle with their homework, or watching them succeed in a musical lesson. Those moments we tend to throw away in our psyche, in our memory, those moments have such incredible value. They're some of the most important moments of your life, and we sometimes miss them or we dismiss them because we don't think they're big enough. And no, those garbage moments, that's what life is made of. And one of the fastest ways to create more work-life balance is to constantly recognize the garbage moments for what they are. Life-changing moments. Pinnacles of progress with your family or yourself. Those moments, when you add them up, those are your life. That is what your life is. Your life is not the big trip to Europe you've been planning for 5 years and you've been thinking about and saving for and all those things. That trip is that 2-week trip to Europe is a culmination of 5 years. But all the things that happened before that, that's really what your life is. So to love and appreciate and look for the garbage moments creates such intense balance and clear prioritization of what is important to you that's probably the biggest tip I have for you today. Except for this one, the last one. The last one I'll leave you with, of these tips on how to create more work-life balance. Yes, the garbage moments are absolutely important. It's what makes up life. But to appreciate those moments, you have to understand this last point. And that there is really no such thing as work-life balance. There is no work life and family life. There's just life. Trying to keep the scales balanced 50-50 is impossible. And it creates a ton of anxiety. And it gives you false goals that are impossible to achieve. And of course, when you can't achieve impossible goals, what does that do? Sets you up for failure. It makes you feel like a failure. And then you fail at it. And then you get depressed or demotivated or angry and upset. You think there's something wrong with you because of where you give your attention. And there's not. There will be times when work has to take priority. And then there will be other times when your family has to take priority. Both are okay. But knowing that and being aware of how you are spending your time in those moments, that will help you bring back a balance so that you can use these other techniques that we discussed here. There will be plenty of times where the department, your agency, demands more of you than is reasonable. There are plenty of times where your family demands more of you than is reasonable. Both are okay. And frankly, there will be times where those are both happening at the same time. That is the real challenge. So learning how to navigate home life, work life, and what's important and what's not important, and your goals versus someone else's goals, those are the things that are going to help you create a life, not of work-life balance, but of just balance. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're new to the show, make sure you check through our catalog of episodes because you're going to find some amazing guests and some amazing actionable ideas that you can take into your day. Also, if you like what you heard today, I want to offer you some extra free resources that we give out. It's our Tactical Tuesday newsletter. Every Tuesday, I bring you a few tactics, tips, and strategies to help you succeed in the week ahead. It may be a book I want to share, gear I found useful, an inspiring quote to think about, or anything else I think you'd like. To sign up for the Tactical Tuesdays email list, you can visit thesquadroom.net/Tactical Tuesdays, or just text your email address and your first name to 805-364-2331. That's 805-364-2331. Those text messages actually come straight to me. It's not some big conglomerate where they steal all your information. We won't spam you and we won't sell your information. If you didn't catch the phone number, you can check the show notes for that there. But thank you for being with us today. Please share this episode. Please integrate what you've learned here. Please tag me on social media to let me know what is useful. Tag me with some questions, and let's engage in a conversation. And let's make this a better career and a better environment and a better world for all of us. Until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.